Happy Tuesday, friends. Today is Tuesday, August 15th, 2023, and we're going to talk all about that beautiful quilt hanging up behind me in just a few minutes. But first, I have a couple of announcements for you. First up is a new D-Stash sale. Mom, Mary, and I are teaming up to do a D-Stash sale this Saturday, August 19th, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. This is going to be a lot of fun. We've got some fabric, we've got some pre-cuts, we've got some quilt kits, and we've got some notions, and we're looking to offload all of that. We're going to do that in our live sale on Whatnot. Now, don't forget, if you used my link either months ago or maybe today to create a Whatnot account for the very first time, you're going to get a $25 credit, and you can use that to shop my D-Stash sale this coming Saturday. All of the details will be in the show notes down below. So if you're looking for a link to the sale or a link to create a new Whatnot account, make sure to jump down there and check out those links. The second announcement that I have for you is an exciting giveaway. Listen, I cannot believe that this channel has more than 20,000 subscribers. I am so excited to reach this milestone, and I want to celebrate it with you. You'll find a link in the show notes down below to a giveaway that I'm hosting on my website to celebrate this milestone. Now, I wished I could give each and every one of you something to show you how much you mean to me, but I can't afford 20,000 gifts. So we're going to celebrate by having one giveaway, and all the details for that will be on my website. Make sure to check out the show notes down below to get all the details for that. The giveaway is going to be open until August 31st, and I will announce the winner live on my Friday night live stream on Friday, September 1st. Oh yeah, and speaking of September, any guesses as to who's in my home right now and is not going home until after Labor Day? If you guessed Mama Nancy, you guessed correctly. My mom came in at the beginning of the month to celebrate my sister Nicole's birthday with her and just spend some time. But secretly, I think she was looking to get some more sewing time in. When we went to Alabama, she got to spend a whole week sewing, and I think she really enjoyed it. And all I have heard from her since then is, I wished I had a sewing machine here. Now, I have offered to hook her up by sending her baby lock to her home, but she really wants to keep it here so that she can sew with me. She doesn't want to sew alone. So the only way that she could figure out how to sew, I think, is to come spend some time with me, and I'm not going to turn my nose up at that. So obviously, Mama Nancy is sewing. What is she working on? Well, funny you should ask. She's making another Jelly Roll Race quilt, which I think is absolutely hilarious. You see, in Alabama, she got a jelly roll and some yardage from one of the ladies there, and she took all those pieces and put it together in a jelly roll race that we taught her how to do at retreat. And as soon as it was done, she stood up and posed for pictures with it and then handed it to me and said, "Never again! I am not doing another jelly roll race." So I think it's a little ironic or funny that she is working on another jelly roll race. Now, I do think that the reason why she's working on it is because it is a project that she's already familiar with. She had a jelly roll that she just absolutely loved. And this is a project she can work on independently without me hovering over her shoulder. So while I'm at work during the day, she can make progress on her jelly roll race. The first Jelly Roll Race quilt that she did in Alabama, that took her probably about 4 days to put together, but this one is going a lot quicker. However, she is taking a little bit more in terms of breaks between different steps. For example, her Jelly Roll Race is pretty much put together. It just needs a good pressing and the borders added, but it's been in that state for about 3 days. So we'll see if it actually gets finished before she leaves. It doesn't matter how fast or how slow she's going. The reality is she's enjoying putting it together. She likes how it looks, and she's excited to have it done. And at the end of the day, that's the only reason any of us should really be creating, is because we enjoy the experience of making something. Once it's all put together, obviously it's going to need to be quilted. And I got to tell you, I am really tempted to load that onto the long arm and teach her how to just do an all over loop-de-loop design so that she can say she pieced it and quilted and bound it all on her own. But I don't think she's so eager to use that long arm, so we'll have to see how that goes. I certainly hope she's not expecting me to quilt it because I don't know that I have the time anytime soon. So updates on Mama Nancy's project and what she's been working on are all well and good, but I know some of you are out there thinking, Becca, what is that behemoth behind you? Well, I am glad you asked. This quilt is the Fat Quarter Shop Designer Mystery Quilt from 2018, featuring the Ella and Ollie fabric line by Fig Tree. The quilt top is fully pieced and right now measures 68 inches wide by 93 inches long. And the fabric was not pre-washed before I put it together, so I do know that once I quilt it and wash it, it's going to shrink a little bit. But either way, at the end of the day, this quilt is going to be a good twin size quilt. For those of you that don't know what the Designer Mystery Quilts are, let me just explain it for you really quickly. This is a 12-month block of the month program from Fat Quarter Shop. Each month, you get a little kit in the mail that has your pattern and a generous amount of fabric to put together a block. And spoiler alert, a lot of times there's enough fabric in there to make some bonus blocks. Each block that is featured in the quilt is designed by a different designer. So there's 12 blocks designed by 12 designers. At the end of the 12-month program, they are all put together in a finishing setting that's designed by Fat Quarter Shop. They do these every year, usually starting in June, and I am doing the 2023 Designer Mystery Quilt. They started shipping earlier this summer, and as of right now, knock on wood, I am caught up with the 2023 Designer Mystery Quilt, and I do intend to stay caught up. I'm actually sewing those blocks together on a live stream one Friday night a month. So if you want to see the Designer Mystery Quilt start coming together for 2023, please consider subscribing to the channel and tuning in to my Friday night live streams. Oh yeah, and by the way, if you're looking at that quilt and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I just love how that looks and I want to make one for myself, I do believe Fat Quarter Shop sells the patterns for previous year's Designer Mystery Quilts, so you can pick those up on their website. I'll put a link in the show notes down below. I want to let you know I started this quilt 5 years ago and it is my oldest UFO. And I know some of you out there are thinking, wait a minute, Becca, 5 years old is not that old. I have UFOs that are way older than that, and I am sure you do. But remember, I just started quilting in 2017. So for me, this is a really old quilt. So what made me want to finish this quilt? Well, honestly, it was the goal that I set for myself in 2023. I really want to end this year with all of the UFOs that I entered the year being completed, or at least pieced. They don't have to be quilted, but I want the quilt tops to be assembled. This was just the oldest one that I had on my shelves, so I figured when I got back from retreat and I was ready to dive into another project, this needed to be next on the chopping block. I thought that this was really going to be a quick finish because all 12 of the blocks that are displayed in the quilt, I did those years ago. And so I thought all I really had to do was sew those 12 blocks together and I would be done. It'd take me a few hours on a Saturday and I could wash my hands of it, have another UFO checked off of the list and send it out for quilting. But boy, oh boy, was I wrong. While I had 12 blocks assembled, what I didn't have were the additional blocks that were needed for the finishing setting. I had 12 beautiful blocks designed by those designers, but I needed 34 sawtooth stars and 6 flower blocks. And then I had all of the components that I needed to put this quilt together. Just making those additional 40 blocks took me almost a whole weekend. But after a weekend of making those blocks and a couple evenings after work, assembling everything together, I am happy to say that the quilt top is all now put together. But I've learned some things. I made some realizations that I want to share with you in my time working on the Designer Mystery Quilt. The first realization that I have is patterns, they're just a suggestion. Ultimately, we made 12 blocks in this quilt top, and I loved making all of those. But when I pulled up the finishing pattern and saw how all 12 of those blocks were going to go into the quilt top, I was overwhelmed with the amount of work that was still left to be done. Now, I could have cut my losses right then and there and decided just to sew those 12 blocks together with some sashing cornerstones and borders and call this project done. But I knew that I really wanted to have the quilt look the way it was supposed to look. And so I set it aside to do another day. Ultimately, I'm really happy that I took the time to put this quilt together the way you see it now. But it's a lesson that I want to remember because I have been a part of other Block of the Month series where you don't know what the quilt is going to look like at the very end. Think about the Block of the Month from the Sew Sampler boxes from 2022 to 2023. I enjoyed putting the blocks together, but I did not love that finishing setting. I did not want to spend the time putting it together that way. And that would have been a really good candidate for a quilt where I just take the 12 blocks and sew them together and call it done. Personally, I really am happy that I stuck with this one and decided to put those blocks into the finishing layout that Fat Quarter Shop designed for us. The second realization that I have is that your tastes evolve. Listen, in 2018, as a newbie quilter, I was all in on anything from Fig Tree. In fact, I remember getting a charm pack of the Ella and Ollie fabric and just being in love with all of the different pieces of fabric that were in there. And when I saw that Fat Quarter Shop was doing a whole quilt in that fabric, I was beyond excited. But as the years have progressed, and I say that like it's been years, but it's only been a few years, as time has moved on, my tastes have evolved. And while I still appreciate the color palette that Fig Tree designs with, I don't know if 2023 Becca is as excited about the Ella and Ollie quilt as 2018 Becca was. I do think the quilt is very pretty and I am super happy to have it done. I'm just saying that if 2018 Becca would have stayed the course, then 2018 Becca could have appreciated a fabric line that she just absolutely loved and a quilt that she equally loved instead of 2018 Becca enjoying this fabric in a box on her shelf that she never really got to look at. Listen, I will always say this. Fabric always looks better in a finished quilt than boxed up on your shelves. The third realization that I have is just honestly, oh my goodness, I have come a long way. Now, I don't want that to sound like, oh my goodness, I'm perfect and I never make any mistakes and all of my work is just spot on, because it's not. But it is definitely better than where I was 5 years ago. And I say that because all 12 of those blocks were pieced about 4 or 5 years ago, but the finishing setting was pieced about a week ago. When I look back at this quilt, there are definitely some mistakes in it. Some of those blocks did not measure where they should have. They were a little short. And so as a result, I have points that are just completely missing. They are just completely lobbed off in there. But on the blocks that I made for the finishing setting, those points are spot on, and I am super excited about that. I'll even let you know there is a mistake in this quilt. One of the blocks that I sewed early on in the program has an entire quadrant that is just wrong. Now, it is an easy fix. I could go in with a seam ripper and spend a couple hours and just rotate that part of the block to make it perfect. But I'm not going to do that. And here's why. Because the story of this quilt is how I have progressed. The 12 featured blocks that are in the quilt is where I was in 2018 and 2019. And the finishing setting, my goodness, that is where I am right now. And it is neat to be able to know the understory there and to understand that this is a story of my evolution as a quilter. I know some of you out there are thinking, though, Becca, that fix would be really easy. And every time you look at the quilt, all you're going to see is that messed up block. Well, I don't know. Maybe I will, but I will tell you, I showed this quilt to my mom, my husband, and my sister, and none of them saw the piece that was wrong until I pointed it out. I've obviously shown it to you, so you know where it is, but I'd be interested to know, would you go back and fix it? Or would you keep to the storyline that I'm trying to keep to? I loved my time putting this quilt together, and I am already eager to move on to my next UFO. Next in my crosshairs is another block of the month, also from Fat Quarter Shop, that I have abandoned part of the way through, and I cannot wait to dive into that and reveal that finished project to you. Thank you, friends, so much for tuning in and helping to continue support me in my quilting journey. I had a blast telling you the story of my 2018 Designer Mystery Quilt, and I can't wait to share my next project with you. I'll see you guys all next week. Bye!